The one thing that we all have in common is this beautiful planet. So that means that Earth Day is much more than just a date on the calendar. It is a day to remind us to value and better take care of the one thing that we all share. So come join us. We're going to learn to better take care of our Mother Earth.
One of the fun ways you can celebrate Earth Day is to go on a nature scavenger hunt outside. You can go to a park, go out on your balcony or porch, or have a backyard adventure. Now I have a list of things I'm going to look for.
A plant with flowers, a plant with no flowers, something that smells nice, a leaf, and a twig.
Come on, let's go!
All right, now we're out here and we have our list to get us started. You have 60 seconds. Can you find everything? I knew you could do it.
That was super fun. Thanks for going with me. Now that we've done it together, go and explore on your own. I'd love to know what you find.
It's time for Shakespeare Says.
Dear Earth, I do salute thee with my hand.
This has been Shakespeare Says.
What are greenhouses and how are they similar to the greenhouse effect?
This is an example of one type of greenhouse. I started this greenhouse about 1 year ago and I'm still learning and researching new things every day. A lot of gardening is learned through research and trial and error. Greenhouses do not guarantee that your plants will automatically thrive. You have to control the temperature and airflow. Otherwise, the plants will become too hot and not be able to sustain life. This plastic dome humidity tray is very much like a greenhouse. Let's use it to explain the greenhouse effect. Let's pretend that the plants are the earth and the tray is our atmosphere, or clouds. The greenhouse effect occurs when light shining on the earth passes through the atmosphere relatively easy. But once the light is on the earth, it is trapped and cannot leave as easily. Light flows in and heats the surface. The surface radiates some of the absorbed energy back. If there were no atmosphere, the radiation would escape back into space. However, the Earth does have an atmosphere, which bounces that energy back onto the Earth. This gives Earth a second chance to absorb the energy. The energy does eventually get released, but the thicker atmosphere adds to the heating of the Earth. Very much like a blanket. Greenhouses can be purchased at any major retailer. This is what mine looked like originally, but if I were to just put my plants in here and close up the greenhouse, the sun would heat up the greenhouse so much that the plants would bake and most likely die. In order to set up a successful greenhouse, we had to create an irrigation system, a way to control the cooling and the airflow. We also have a heater during the winters. But that does not mean that the plants will live forever. Nature has its cycles, and those cycles help keep the balance of life. Sometimes plants die, sometimes you need to replant, and overall, it is your living garden that you can adjust and maintain. I consider our greenhouse to be a big science experiment. Sometimes things work, sometimes you have to make changes. The rewards are some very delicious veggies and greens. We need to keep our system balanced so that the future will be as beautiful as today. What can you do for our Earth to maintain the balance?
Why did the leaf go to the doctor? 'Cause he was feeling green.
Have you ever heard of a carbon footprint? Just like an actual footprint, it's a mark you leave on the environment. Except a carbon footprint is from all the things we do that release carbons, which are harmful gases that get pumped out by burning fossil fuels. The more fuel you use, the bigger your carbon footprint. It's practically impossible to leave no footprint, but you can reduce your impact. Walk or ride a bike instead of driving if it's safe. Avoid plastic that you throw away after using only once. That's why I have one of these. And turn off lights when you're not using them. Little actions can really add up. And when a lot of people help, we can make big things happen.
If you want to reduce your carbon footprint, a good solution is a compost pile. We made this out of 4 pallets using all free materials. And by having the door swing open and closed, we can keep our dogs out of it. But there's so many ways to make a compost pile. If you want to learn more, the Fort Worth Public Library has you covered. I recommend this book. It's called Compost, a family guide to making soil from scraps, written by Ben Raskin. Compost piles are not something to just put your trash in. You can only put organic matter into the pile, and you have to turn it every now and then. I recommend to always have enough space to pull everything out and mix it. We're going to show you how we turn our compost pile. Your compost pile should have an equal amount of browns to greens. You should also alternate layers of organic materials to different size particles. The brown materials provide carbon for your compost and consist of cardboard, leaves, and hay. The green materials provide nitrogen and consist of fresh grass clippings, food scraps, and in our case, used up chicken bedding. Don't forget to water your pile because that speeds up the process. Here is a list of things you can and cannot compost. Compost piles require a balance. And if you put in the wrong items, you could increase the bacteria levels or even introduce parasites. Be mindful when collecting kitchen scraps and ensure that you turn your compost every once in a while. We keep our compost pile closed overnight to keep out any wildlife or vermin. Occasionally, we'll open it up for the chickens to enjoy. They like to find worms and all sorts of bugs inside. Don't worry if you don't have a yard to compost in. The City of Fort Worth is doing a residential food scraps composting pilot program. You can check it out at Eventbrite, and it costs $20 to subscribe. If you don't have a yard but you still want to do DIY compost, you should check out bokashi. Bokashi is the process of adding specially dried bacteria, lactobacilli, into organic matter to aid in the process of fermentation. This breaks down the food waste without the need of a yard. There are so many ways to help reduce your carbon footprint. I encourage you to research which way is right for you.
Why did the dog bury itself in the backyard on Earth Day?
I don't know, Coco. Why did he?
Because you can't grow a tree without bark!
Planet Earth, our home. This amazing place in the universe beat the planetary odds and is able to support the 6 main elements that are the fundamental building blocks of life. However, life as we know it faces many struggles to survive. Gases that pollute our air, chemicals that pollute our drinking water and soil, plastics that can last over 450 years before they break down. It's overwhelming to think about all these things. However, thanks to Earth Day, we've become more aware of how fragile our ecosystems are and how we can protect them and sometimes even reverse some of the damage that's been done to our home in the cosmos. Let's start at the beginning. 4.5 billion years ago, there was a molten rock ball floating around a newly formed sun. That's a little too far back. We only need to go back a few decades to the 1960s. In the decades leading up to the 1960s, Americans were consuming large amounts of fuel. Industrial factories were releasing large amounts of pollution without many consequences or laws to keep them from doing so. Air pollution and smog was just accepted as the cost of progress. Most Americans were oblivious to the environmental concerns and how polluted environments threaten our health as well as the health of all ecosystems. In 1962, Rachel Carlson published a book called Silent Springs. This book documents the adverse environmental effects caused by the indiscriminate use of pesticides. It sold more than 500,000 copies in 24 countries and was the first wake-up call for society to realize that there was a problem. In January 1969, Americans were witness to a massive oil spill in Santa Barbara, California. Gaylord Nelson, who was the United States Senator from Wisconsin, announced the idea for a teach-in on college campuses. During this time, teach-ins were a form of protest and a way to bring awareness to problems. The date that they chose for this teach-in was April 22nd, 1970. This became the very first Earth Day and inspired an estimated 20 million Americans to take to the streets, parks, and auditoriums to demonstrate against industrial development which negatively affected human health. From that day forward, April 22nd has become a yearly celebration of Earth Day. In 1990, Earth Day went global with 141 countries taking part. Today, Earth Day has become the largest secular observance in the world, with more than 1 billion people taking part in this day of action to make the world a cleaner and safer place for everyone. Even though Earth Day is only once a year, it's important to help take care of our planet the other 364 days of the year. The only home we have right now is the planet Earth, and we have to make sure to keep it clean and not pollute it. There are so many ways to help take care of the Earth. One of the easiest ways is to use the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. The first way to help take care of the Earth is to reduce how much we use. Examples of this would be reduce the amount of fuel your family uses by taking more public transportation, or choosing not to use a plastic straw for your drink when you go out to a restaurant. Take a look at your daily activities and see if there are ways to reduce the amount of waste. Next is reuse. Are there ways that you can reuse items that you were going to throw away? Instead of using a new plastic water bottle each time you go to the park, use a reusable cup that you can wash and use again. Organize a swap among your friends. Instead of throwing away toys and books or clothes that you don't want anymore, swap them with your friends. Just make sure to ask your parents first. When printing things out from a computer, use both sides of the paper, not just one. I know when I go to the grocery store, I get a lot of plastic bags that I never know what to do with. Did you know that you can turn those plastic bags into plarn? Plarn is plastic yarn. Check out my Maker Showcase interview with Sarah Zink and learn how to do that. Lastly, recycle. Does your household use the blue bins provided by the City of Fort Worth for items that you can recycle? You can put paper, cans, cardboard, glass, containers, and plastics into these bins. There are other items that can be recycled, but you'll need to take them to one of the city's collection sites. These includes fluorescent bulbs, used oil, full or empty paint cans, styrofoam, and more. Use the Waste Wizard on the city's website to find the nearest drop-off location. The 3 R's could really help with one of the biggest pollution problems of plastics. Plastics can break into smaller pieces called microplastics. These microplastics collect in the oceans around the world, and they're moved around by the ocean currents. Right now, there are 2 large collections of these non-biodegradable plastics floating between California and Japan called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. When I say patch, you might think of a small collection, maybe the size of a small sports stadium or even a small island. Right now, this patch is roughly twice as large as the state of Texas, and it's only getting worse. It's estimated that 80 million metric tons of plastics go into our oceans each year. By the year 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in the ocean. Animals like fish can also mistake microplastics for food and eat them. It's estimated that 25% of fish now contain plastics. Gross. It might seem small, but if everyone does their part to use the 3 R's to help reduce, reuse, and recycle plastics, that would be a step in the right direction. These are just a few ideas, but there are literally thousands of ways for you to help take care of the Earth and celebrate Earth Day every day.
When you're in a hurry, or lazy, or confused. What do we do with all the stuff we use? We would all be drowning in trash if we threw everything away when we're done with it. Not everything goes in the garbage, and not everything can be recycled. So how do you know what goes where? There's gotta be a better way.
Wow, it can be tough to figure out what goes where. Why not just throw it all away? Well, many landfills serving Fort Worth will be full in the next 30 years, and it takes time to plan and build new places to store trash. Because of this, and because we want to preserve as many of the Earth's resources as we can, we want to make sure we dispose of things properly. Different materials require different types of disposal. Thankfully, the City of Fort Worth's Code Compliance Department has created a game to help you get started. The Code Compliance Department maintains the city's status as a clean, livable city. Before we play the game, let's talk about our options. Your first option is to reuse. Is this something you could use again, give to someone who needs it, upcycle, or turn into an awesome artwork? If not, try one of these. Drop-off stations are open to Fort Worth homeowners and some renters for disposal of trash, brush, recyclables, household chemicals, and donated items. Brown garbage carts are for trash. Blue recycling bins are for cans, paper and cardboard, glass, and plastic, but not plastic bags or film. Everything should be empty, clean, and dry when you put it in the blue bins. You should also try to compress things if you can, smushing aluminum cans, flattening boxes, and squeezing the air out of plastic jugs. You can put the cap back on to keep it smushed. Bulk trash pickup happens monthly for items that are too large, heavy, or bulky to fit in the brown garbage cart. Bulk brush pickup also happens monthly for large branches or trees, and those get processed and turned into mulch. Yard trimmings are also turned into mulch, but they go into brown paper bags. Grocery stores or dry cleaner. Most grocery stores accept plastic bags and film recycling, and dry cleaners accept metal hangers. You can check out the game to build your recycling knowledge at fortworth.recycle.game. We're going to play level 1 together. Let's see. Alright, the first one on the list is plastic bags. Do you remember where plastic film and plastic bags can be recycled? Did you say the grocery store? You're right. How about yard and garden trimmings? Where should those go? How about into yard trimmings? Alright. Styrofoam. Now that's a tricky one. We didn't talk about that one. Styrofoam can actually be taken to the drop-off stations to be recycled. How about plastic hangers? We talked about metal hangers, but what do you think about plastic ones? Unfortunately, plastic hangers have to go in the brown garbage cart. How about cardboard boxes? Did you say the blue recycling cart? You're right. Remember to take them apart when you put them in. Food. Where does food go? If you said the brown garbage cart, you're right. Great work, everyone. Now, when you finish a level in the game, you can add a reward to design your own park. I'm going to add this seesaw. All right. Click continue and play the rest of the levels at fortworth.recycle.game. If you want to learn more, you can find detailed lists of what goes where at the Code Compliance website. You can also download the Fort Worth Garbage and Recycling app for your mobile device. Now, it's important to follow the recycling guidelines, and if you aren't sure if something can be recycled, throw it away. You can remember that with a catchy slogan, when in doubt, throw it out. Let's head over to a recycling facility to find out why it's important to recycle correctly. When trucks pick up the recycling from your bins, they take them to a recycling center. Once at the center, the bins are poured onto large machines, and with the help of workers, the contents are sorted by type. So paper, glass, aluminum, and plastics all get sorted into different piles. Workers also help to separate clean recyclables from dirty ones. If dirty materials get other recyclables dirty, they all have to be thrown out. The operations manager of a recycling center that accepts materials from Fort Worth's blue bins said that his team has found bowling balls, parts of couches, even dirty diapers. Do dirty diapers sound recyclable to you? Once the recyclables are separated, they are compacted into 1,500-pound bales, which are then sold to vendors for reuse both in the United States and abroad. And you know what? Your milk jug of today might be your dishwasher liquid jug of tomorrow. This bottle and cap are made from 100% post-consumer recycled plastic.
When you think of the word upcycling, what do you think of? Upcycling is taking one thing that's no longer useful and turning it into something that is, or turning trash into treasure. Check out how you can turn a simple bottle cap into a lovely piece of jewelry.
Try this.
This project is a small one, but the effect it has on Earth is big. To complete this project, you're going to need a plastic bottle cap, ribbon or string, paint pens or Sharpie markers, and some strong glue. I'm going to use my glue gun, but make sure to ask your caregiver for some help if you decide to use one too. Now let's get started. The first thing you're going to do is fold your string in half and find the center. Then your caregiver is going to place a dab of glue at the top of the bottle cap and attach the string and wait for it to dry. Now it's time to color and design your top. And there you have it, an upcycled bottle cap necklace. For extra pizzazz, glue a small picture of your favorite person on the other side. Now check out these upcycled art pieces. Some use hundreds, even thousands of plastic bottle caps. What will you create next?
Don't you hate it when you run out of candy? Isn't it the worst when recess ends? Well, let me tell you about something that never ends. Renewable energy!
These solar panels soak up the sun and keep the lights on. These wind turbines capture the wind's energy and help you log into your favorite virtual class. This hydro-powered dam uses the energy from running water to power whole cities. Wow! Renewable energy, the gift that keeps on giving!
Now that we know a little bit about renewable energy, let's talk about some of the exciting ways it's being used to solve problems in the world. Scientists are working on all kinds of amazing, innovative ways to use renewable resources for energy. Windmills that spin or vibrate, geothermal plants that use heat from hot springs or volcanic activity, hydroelectric plants that use waterfalls or rivers, solar panels that use sunlight, even electricity harvested from the movement of pedestrians walking down the street are all being looked into as ways to power our homes and cities. One of these scientists is Manasa Mendu from Mason, Ohio, winner of the 2016 Discovery Education 3M Young Scientist Contest. At 13 years old, she was inspired to try and find a solution to the problems created by the lack of electricity she saw in India when she visited with her family. For example, if students didn't have electric light at home, they weren't able to finish their homework or study. Problems like this moved her to use her skills and creativity to invent an LED lamp that runs off of 100% renewable resources. She worked with her mentor to research, experiment, and make a prototype. She wanted it to be low cost, efficient, and accessible. Her idea was to use all kinds of renewable energy: wind, solar, and something called piezoelectricity, or electricity created by vibrations. She took her inspiration from plants and came up with a lamp that used piezoelectric stems that harvested electricity from the movements of raindrops and wind, as well as light from the sun on the solar panel leaves to produce a steady electric LED lamp. That's amazing! What can you create, young scientist?
More about Earth Day and hear stories about how our favorite book characters keep their community clean, check out the books like Yasmin the Recycler to hear how Yasmin gets her friends to become great recyclers, or check out the book Rocket Says Cleanup to learn how Rocket and her family clean up a beach to keep the home of animals living in the ocean clean. If you would like to get creative ideas about how to upcycle items and turn your trash into treasure, check out the book Out of the Box by Gemma Westig. This book teaches readers how to engineer and create new items made from cardboard. Did you know that you could upcycle materials in the name of science? Check out the book, Recycle Science, to learn how you can use things like popsicle sticks to create chain reactions and even a safe and simple bow and arrow. Learn how the smallest steps can create a world of difference by checking out the books Every Last Drop and Pedal It, both written by Michelle Mulder. These books teach readers about the differences in water availability throughout the world and how bikes are used to decrease pollution and even power machines. Don't forget to test your knowledge on recycling at fortworthtexas.gov in the sorting game that Angela showed us before. Now that you know how to reduce, reuse, and recycle, take action in your community to keep Fort Worth beautiful. Visit Keep Fort Worth Beautiful to learn how you can volunteer to be a part of litter cleanup groups like the Neighborhood Litter Stomp and Trinity Trash Bash, or organize your own cleanup at any time. Kids of any age can volunteer with a caregiver, and you can even request supplies from the city to receive free trash bags, gloves, and even a cool t-shirt. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Earth Day. We'll see you next time.